Welcome to Catholic News World. Interview with Faith Hakesley.
To tell us about her story of faith after undergoing abuse and also about her new book and her family. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. So perhaps you can tell our readers a little bit about yourself.
So, as you said, my name is Faith, and I live in Massachusetts with my husband and 4 children. We have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 4-year-old, and we just welcomed our 4th just 7 weeks ago. So I am a frazzled mother. We homeschool our children. We homeschooled from the very beginning, which is really neat because I was homeschooled myself what feels like eons ago. And it's something we decided that's what we wanted for our family as well. And that's pretty much me in a nutshell at this point in my life. I kind of out of the blue, and something I never really expected to do was I had a book published by our Sunday Visitor last summer. I am a survivor of clerical abuse. I was sexually abused by a parish priest when I was 15 years old. And something I've always wanted to do is help other survivors. And I've never quite known how that was going to happen, but an opportunity presented itself about 2 years ago, and I just started writing, and here we are today. That's me in a nutshell.
It can be difficult at times, and I'm really sorry for what happened to you. Survivors and just people in general can identify with you and will be helped by what you're writing. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your journey and healing and forgiveness and how you found faith again.
Well, as I mentioned, I was sexually abused when I was 15 years old. I was working in the parish rectory when it happened. And I won't share too many details about that, but that was something that no one should have to go through. And the summer after it happened, sadly, my oldest brother passed away unexpectedly from a heart condition. And it was because of Matthew's, my brother's passing. He was 22 years old. Because of his passing, I had so much. I was dealing with so many emotions at that point because of all these traumas, that that's what ultimately helped me to come out and share my story with those around me. And then I ultimately made the decision to press charges and face my rapist in court. And he was sentenced to jail, so he did do jail time. And then upon release, he was deported to his native Colombia. That was in 2013. So I don't know his whereabouts at this point. So I guess one of the messages I always try to share with people is that there is always hope. And that is something that anyone who's been through any particular kind of trauma, whether it's sexual abuse or a death of a loved one or any kind of trauma really, that's something that is so important to hold on to. Because if you don't, you kind of you will completely fall apart. In 2008, I was given the life-changing opportunity to meet privately with Pope Benedict XVI during his apostolic visit to Washington, D.C. It was myself and a few other survivors from the Archdiocese of Boston. And one of the last things he said to me was, "There is always hope." And so that is a message that I have tried to share with others, particularly survivors of sexual abuse. This book came about primarily because of that, because I was just, when the Pennsylvania grand jury report was released a few summers ago, I felt so helpless. And I just wanted to share with other people in some way, again, with that hope, and that there is peace and healing possible after sexual abuse. I also want to encourage people to not give up their faith. And I know that's something that's really difficult to do. And I know that's going to look different for all survivors, because let's face it, we're not all the same. We all heal differently. We're all going to cope differently, and that's okay. But I do want to encourage people, no matter where they are in their journey, to use their faith as a tool to help you heal. I think I worked in the psychology field for a little while after I graduated from college. And one of the things that I saw was there was a lot of emphasis on mental health and some emphasis on physical health, but not a whole lot of emphasis on spiritual health. And I firmly believe that they are all connected. Looking back, I can see how important my faith was in my journey. And I probably didn't always appreciate it. Now now as an adult, I can look back and say, wow, that was probably what kept me going more than anything. I came from a very Catholic home with parents who encouraged me, prayed with me. They encouraged me to pray. They encouraged me to develop my own prayer life, my own relationship with God. And I really think that is a huge part of the reason why I have been able to come so far in my own healing journey. So I really want to encourage people to mind body and spirit connection is so important. And I can't stress enough, you cannot leave God out of it. And he is there to help you. He is there to carry your cross with you. And I know that sometimes when you've been through something so horrible, it's normal to question, why did this happen to me? You might even be angry at God. He's not going to leave you, and he can handle it. But just trust in him and ask him for his graces. The title of my book is Glimmers of Grace, Moments of Peace and Healing Following Sexual Abuse. And I called it Glimmers of Grace because one of the many things that kept me going during that really rough patch in my life was those little miracles that God sends to us. And maybe someone else might not appreciate them or recognize them as being God sent. But those glimmers of grace, it's like those little things that might happen on a daily basis where you say, that was you, God, thank you. And through those glimmers of grace, it just enables you to, with your faith, it just allows you to see things in such a different light. It was my mom that actually inspired that, because back when I was going through a particularly rough time, I was just in a very dark place. I was in my last year of high school. I had contemplated suicide. I was still grieving the loss of my brother, and I was preparing for the trial against my rapist. And she said to me, Faith, you have to look for those glimmers. You have to keep going. You just have to ask God for his grace and recognize that he is with you. He's speaking to you in some way. And I kind of, okay, Mom, whatever. And then when I was, just before I was about to testify at the trial, one of the court guards handed me something before I went into the courtroom, and I had no idea what it was. And I had been praying to God, just please help me, please help me, please help me. And I looked down and it was a little Tootsie Roll. And to someone else, they might say, a Tootsie Roll, what's that all about? And personally, I don't even like Tootsie Rolls. But for me, that was a glimmer of grace. That was almost like God was speaking to me through that guard, through that Tootsie Roll, saying, you're not alone. I'm with me. Sort of like that Bible passage. I think it's from the Gospel of Matthew. You have to have faith the size of a mustard seed. So I went into that courtroom thinking, okay, I need to have faith the size of a Tootsie Roll. And we're going to get through this. And I did. It turned out, it worked out. One of the other things that I always encourage people to do, and again, this happens differently at a different time for everyone. Certainly did for me. And this is something, that I especially encourage, because you hear so often the phrase forgive and forget. I think that's a dangerous thing to be telling survivors. First of all, we're not all going to forgive again at the same time, and we're all going to forgive a little bit differently. And I also don't want people to think that because that you've forgiven, that you're going to forget. You're not going to forget. Those memories will and can become easier with time, taking the necessary steps and getting the necessary help. Those memories, those feelings will get better with time. I can promise you that. But you shouldn't ever forget that is a part of who you are. And how would I be able to help people if I completely forgot everything that happened? And I also never want to welcome that kind of situation into my life again. I don't ever want that to happen again. So by remembering, I can kind of remember the signs, and so that can actually be a defense mechanism in the future to prevent something like that from happening again, please God. Forgiveness, though, is very, very important. And when you are living in a world that is just full of hatred for that particular person, and believe me, I've been there, it's like you are chained. You are bound in chains from that hate. You can almost feel it in the front of your brain. The constant anger, the hatred, the resentment, it's always there. And until you're able to let that go, and it doesn't mean that you forget, it doesn't mean that they're let off the hook, it doesn't mean that they're not accountable. It just means, forgiveness to me just means that I've left it in God's hands. It's not up to me I can't sentence my rapist. I can't say whether he's going to heaven or hell. I can't judge the state of his soul. I can absolutely say that what he did was wrong to me and to those other women. However, it takes the pressure off me, off you as a person when you're able to forgive. But it doesn't always happen right off the bat. It takes time. And the other thing is, sometimes even all these years later, it's been 20 years for me since I was raped. There are days when those old feelings of anger and the resentment, and anger is not always bad, by the way, but the hatred, those really intense feelings of I want to see him get hit over the head with a baseball bat. Those feelings start to come back. And you have to kind of make that conscious decision to forgive all over again. So for me, in my opinion, maybe this is different for everyone, forgiveness doesn't necessarily happen in one moment. It requires work. It requires doing it, the willingness to do it again and again, and a lot of grace. And I couldn't have forgiven if it weren't for our Lord. Seeing him on the cross, we're in the season of Lent right now. You think of him hanging on the cross and the fact that he was able to forgive his murderers from the cross, the fact that he forgave me, forgave you, he has forgiveness and love for everyone. Who am I to withhold that from another human being? Again, doesn't let my rapist off the hook. It doesn't mean that he shouldn't be punished, but I can't hold on to that hatred. It's not doing me any good, and it's not doing him any good. So that's also something that I try to encourage people to do, but at their own pace. I've heard some people say, "Oh, well, the first thing you should be able to do is forgive." Maybe you can, maybe you can't. You have to kind of just go with it and allow God and time to work.
So I guess you're saying it's a process that we have to go through.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Maybe you could, if there's any abuse survivors listening to us, you could give them maybe one piece of advice or two that would help them get through a period of maybe anger against God, against unforgiveness that's built up inside of them. Is there one piece of advice you could give them?
This is easier said than done. Pray. I think that is huge. That's kind of the first step. Opening yourself to speaking to God, even if you are angry at him. Again, he can take it, but I think allowing yourself to open yourself up to God, be honest with him, talk to him, and ask him for his grace. He wants us to ask him for his help because he is so ready and so willing to help us, to give us the graces that we need. So I think the first step in forgiveness is just prayer and opening yourself up to God. And the other thing is just trust the process, and don't try to rush healing. Healing is not a sprint. So there are some days where you are going to feel like you've gone 10 steps forward and you're going to say, I feel great. And then the next day you might feel as if you've gone 20 steps back. That's normal. It is, unfortunately, it is part of the process. It's a difficult one. I'm not going to lie. It's a difficult road, but it takes time. And that's something that as a survivor, I have learned, and that I try to encourage other people, just stick with it. You're having a bad day. Maybe you're having a bad week. You're gonna be okay. Just trust. And believe me, someday you will be able to look back and you will be able to see how far you've come. And you're going to say, wow, is that really the same person? It's amazing just what prayer and a little bit of faith the size of that Tootsie Roll, and just trusting in God. It's amazing and the time. It's amazing what that will do when you look back years from now and you'll say, wow, yeah, I have definitely come so far. Thank you, Lord.
Right, that is so beautiful. Perhaps also you could give some advice to people in the church on how to deal with abuse or suspected abuse, even how to deal with victims, how to deal with perpetrators, even. What do you suggest?
Well, first things first, it needs to be reported. It's plain and simple. I get really frustrated sometimes when I think, what is the problem? You hear about abuse, you suspect abuse, you say something, see something, say something. It's pretty simple. Don't ever assume that because a priest or a nun or someone who works in the church, that just because they seem nice or that they're popular, don't assume that they're not capable of doing very horrible and evil things. Don't assume. Again, you see something, you suspect something, please say something. That's always step one. As far as, and then you allow, law enforcement to take over, because too many priests, in my experience, are trying to play cop or something, and they're trying to figure things out and figure out, well, what's an appropriate punishment. No, that's not your job. You stick to what you're supposed to be doing. Allow law enforcement to do their job. As far as treatment of survivors, be gentle with them, listen to them, welcome them in. So many people have felt cast aside and pushed away. And I've seen so many people leave the church over how they've been treated. Somehow we look at the survivors as the perpetrators. We forget that, maybe we're disappointed because Father so-and-so we really liked him and he was popular. Then we find out he did something he shouldn't have done, and he's, maybe in jail for it, or he's being held accountable for it. And we take it out on the survivor because, or maybe we're upset with ourselves in a way, because it's humbling to admit, I didn't see that coming. It's humbling to admit that you listened, maybe took advice from a particular individual, especially a priest. So survivors deserve our respect. They don't deserve, like, really? Him? He did that? No way. No, don't do that. They deserve gentleness, kindness, respect. They deserve our love. They deserve to be just welcomed, reassured, and protected. And part of how you can how we can all help protect each other is by saying something.
Wonderful. Well, as we come to the conclusion, perhaps you could tell us about your book and how it may help others, and just anything you can tell us about it.
Sure. Well, Glimmers of Grace is not meant to replace therapy or spiritual counseling or whatever it is that you're able to get. I do understand not everyone is able, for a whole variety of reasons, to get to seek out therapy or counseling. But when you are able to, I definitely encourage you to do that. But I think my book is a great supplement to that. One thing I will reassure readers, because I know that there is concern, especially from some survivors, you're not going to get details of abuse in this book. This is, and it's not necessarily my story. I share bits and pieces of certain things that I think might help to encourage and inspire others. But really, I wrote this so that readers feel that they are in control of their own healing journey. There are questions at the end of each reflection to help, inspire readers, help them to, do some work on their own. There are positive affirmations, different self-care techniques, because sometimes self-care is easily neglected when you're going through so much. You just kind of forget to do simple things like drinking enough water, or eating healthier, exercising, or just finding something to do that you enjoy. Those are things that you tend to forget. So all little kind of neat little tidbits are in this book. But really, I just want people to allow God into their healing and ask him for his graces. And so that's what this book is about. It's about asking God for his different graces. It's about recognizing those glimmers of grace. There's a lot of gratitude in it. Opening ourselves up to feeling grateful for what we have, and for God's glimmers of grace, for those little miracles. And it's a pretty easy read, meaning it's not very long, but I encourage you to take it at your own pace. If you want to read it through all at once, okay, I don't recommend it, but you can. Or I recommend kind of taking each reflection one at a time, and kind of see where it leads you.
Beautiful. It sounds like a wonderful book for healing and just understanding of abusive survivors, or it sounds like it could reach so many people and also help people in the church realize how to behave towards abuse survivors.
That's the other thing about this book, is that yes, it's meant for survivors. However, a family member, a therapist, a priest, anyone really could pick up this book and get a better understanding of what a survivor might go through. The other neat part about it is because there's like journaling space, so you can write the answers to some of the reflection questions if you want to do that, and you can share those with someone else, say a spouse. This would have been I sometimes say to my husband, this would have been great to have when we were first married and he was trying to figure this all out, and figure out how I was thinking and all that. It would have been very helpful to have a tool that I could have worked through, but with him, also kind of reading my answers and, us reflecting on it together. So I think that'll be, or even for a parent, this would be a great book for a parent of a survivor who's just not sure, I don't know how to handle this. And this doesn't go into a lot of psychology. You're not going to hear a lot of big psychological terms. So it's not an intimidating book in any way. I also wanted to, as I was writing this, I've picked up one too many books where I just think, oh boy, I feel like I'm in college psychology again. This is a very gentle, very straightforward approach to healing.
Beautiful. Can you just tell us the title and the...
Sure. It's from our Sunday Visitor, and the title is Glimmers of Grace, Moments of Peace and Healing Following Sexual Abuse. It is available on the Our Sunday Visitor website. It's on Amazon. I've seen it in some other places, and there are links to it from my website, which is faithhakesley.com. People can always go there if they want to read more about it, and there are links to where you can purchase it from there.
Beautiful. Well, then you could just lead us in a prayer, perhaps for abuse victims and for anybody listening.
Sure. The prayer, kind of my go-to prayer, is usually the Hail Mary, because, and especially it being Lent, I love to journey. I love to go through Lent with Mary by my side, because, she accompanied her son who was going through so much suffering, and she herself suffered so much. So how about just a simple Hail Mary for all survivors of abuse, or for anyone who is trying to help out with survivors. So, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners,
now and
at the hour of our death. Amen.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you, as you too.